Ernest Shackleton was born on February 15, 1874. He enlisted in the Navy at the age of 14, the age limit for entry at that time. On September 13, 1900, Shackleton wrote to volunteer for the National Antarctic Expedition, which would be his first Antarctic trip. Then again, from Lyttelton, New Zealand, on New Year's Day, 1908, the Nimrod, a three-mast sailing ship, had set sail for the South Pole, making the Shackleton's second trip south. Shackleton later makes a third trip of his own to Antarctica on the ship called the Endurance with 27 other men. Ernest Shackleton purchased the Endurance at a great price of $67,000. At 144 feet long, the Endurance was built from planks of oak and Norwegian fir, up to 2.5 feet thick. She was planned by a master shipwright in Norway to ensure her maximum strength. The Endurance was equipped with both sail and coal-fired steam, and was ideally equipped to withstand the ice. But the Endurance was built to travel on loose packs of ice, not thick bodies that they unfortunately ran into. The Endurance crew was a total of 28 widely varied men, all craving adventure. Jobs ranged from none, as a stowaway, to a doctor, yet all men were treated the same. Equality was to ensure that no man thought of himself better than anyone else, and to avoid disputes on who had to do what chores. Ernest Shackleton pushed and strived to promote equality. Frank Worsley was Shackleton's right-hand man who held a key position in the trip to South Georgia Island. In a clutch or do-or-die situation, Worsley stepped up and guided the six-man rescue team to the island. In the documentary, The Endurance, Shackleton's legendary Antarctic expedition, the narrator describes Worsley's key role in the voyage from Elephant Island to South Georgia Island, using only one navigation tool and sopping wet navigation books. The Endurance had essentially circled around the Weddell Sea. The initial idea was to get from the Weddell Sea and back, but because of the ship getting caught in ice, the crew had gone from going towards the Weddell Sea to getting stuck in a remote location of ice with Antarctic creatures, to rowing to Elephant Island. From there, 6 men went to South Georgia Island in search of rescue. On January 18th, the Endurance became beset in a pack of ice. Pressures from the ice and wind forced the Endurance to start to cave in. Day by day, the Endurance crushed little by little. The ice and pressures were so strong that they had been able to force the Endurance practically on her side. For many months, the crew members of the Endurance had lived on the ship itself, stuck in ice. For amusement, the crew would listen to music, play the banjo, put plays or acts on, or even have sled races with dog teams like this one. One time, orderlies even took a bike ride across the ice. Sleeping was an issue for some, though. It was said that various men could hear the Endurance caving in as they were trying to rest. men were required to attempt to help with the situation of being stuck in ice. Groups of men either chopped at the ice with ice picks or used large ice saws to cut at the ice. Unfortunately, the ice hadn't been cleared enough for the Endurance to pass through. The Antarctic weather, constantly cold, made living conditions on the ice hard, especially during the winter season. Being susceptible to injury from unsympathetic cold air made frostbite always a threat. Food. Men were split up into two groups, hunters and transporters. Hunters would obviously hunt, and transporters would take a team of dogs out to bring the food back. The food would then be cooked on a makeshift stove seen here. Unfortunately, later on in the journey, the dogs are shot and eaten. At night, men had to always be careful in case of a floe breaking in half, putting their life and possessions in danger.
Celebrate, we will, 'cause life is short but sweet for certain. Hey, we climb on too hard until the shore these days.
Shackleton had decided the crew of the Endurance needed to find land no matter what. At the time of the decision, the most practical area of land was Elephant Island. Through tough seas, winds, and waves, the men of the Endurance had made it to Elephant Island, the first land they had seen in a long, long time. Shackleton, Worsley, Crean, McNish, McCarthy, and Vincent set sail on a lifeboat, the James Caird, from Elephant Island on an 800-mile trip across the sea in order to reach the whaling station on the east side of South Georgia Island. These men had to endure freezing cold weather and massive waves in order to reach their destination. This is a picture of the 22 men left on Elephant Island, waving to Shackleton and the other 5 men off to South Georgia Island. Three of the 6 men brought along in search of rescue had been chosen to travel across South Georgia Island. All at once, drowsiness and fatigue hit. Luckily, Shackleton had a sneaky idea. As the men fell asleep, Shackleton would stay awake. After 5 minutes, Shackleton awoke them, explaining how they had slept for 30 minutes. This is a map of South Georgia Island. At last, the rescue crew had been able to reach the whaling station, but after that, rescue of the men still on Elephant Island took many months. The problem was finding a boat suitable to rescue the men. Finally, after searching for a while, the Chilean government allowed Shackleton to take an old steamer, the Yelcho, as seen in this picture, to save the men back on Elephant Island. All 28 men safely returned home.